this is Peak Entertainment and we're back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're just going to give some quick thoughts on the second recently released trailer for the upcoming live action Masters of the Universe movie, which is due for release on June later on this year. Now you can check out my thoughts on the first trailer that was released for the movie, and I'll leave a link within the description. So we'll get straight into it then in terms of my thoughts, and to be honest, I'm not really much more convinced than what I was with the first trailer. My issues remain the same. I felt that despite the fact that they seem to be tapping into the source material, I really wasn't a fan of the overall aesthetic of the film, which is too much usage of clear green screen and CGI, to the point where you look at the characters and you see them immersing in all of the iconic locations of the source material, whether it's Snake Mountain or Castle Grayskull or the Eternian Palace. And a lot of these scenes, they just don't look like they are actually in the backgrounds that are around them. And this is, again, a major setback of not using practical effects and practical sets rather than CGI backgrounds. And I think overall the movie itself just has too much of this artificial feel. I wouldn't say cartoony, because I think enough the designs have a serious intent about them in terms of their construct, but I just think the way that the movie flows, it's not really having that typical physicality or visuality or raw or grittiness that I think certainly to a degree that a He-Man adaptation should have. If you are, like me and so many people of a certain generation, a fan of the series, you know that the whole concept is really this fusion of the fantasy and science fiction, where we deal with much more of the heroes of the Eternian Palace and the Masters of the Universe, who were very much embroiled in technology, and where we deal with the evil forces of Skeletor. They are much more about magic and the broken down, much more organic environments. And there's so much potential there in how to visualize this, and I've always stated that a He-Man live screen adaptation in these modern day era and times really has the potential to have the same verve and scope and scale as to what we saw with the Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movies. But I sadly don't see that potential here. The second trailer itself was quite long. It was over 2.5 minutes, and I think it did show too much. We already get the outline of the story from the first trailer, that in the beginning we soon will get some action heavy prologue, which will show the Castle Grayskull or the Eternian Palace come under attack from Skeletor. This will be his attempt to reclaim the Power Sword. We'll see both Queen Mira and now King Randor, who we saw briefly for the first shot of this film in this trailer. They will go to great strides to protect a young Adam from the attack of Skeletor. They'll send him to planet Earth, and then we'll spend a certain amount of time seeing Adam as an adult in the normal contemporary present day setting, and then eventually he'll slowly come to realise his origin, and then Tina will come and rescue him from planet Earth to alert him to the fact that Eternia has been taken over by Skeletor. We see later on in the trailer where Adam is captured, and that's actually the opening shot here, where we see him in his Earth clothes, the pink and the white, resembling of course the classic design from the 1983 animated series. We see him taken hostage, and we see the others captured as well. So this is likely where we'll enter 2/3 of the movie, where Adam comes back to Eternia, and there'll be a journey where he discovers all of the other characters. So Man-at-Arms, for example, we have that shot where Man-at-Arms, played by Idris Elba, is much more in that brown cape and afro, if you like. And this will probably be the earlier part of the movie before they get captured by Skeletor, and then Adam then has to rally the troops and then starts an overall uprising. So again, if you are very savvy to how these movies are produced now, you can literally put together at least 2/3 of the film. And for the most part, the trailer was really more extended footage of the earlier scenes that we saw before. There was nothing too much more in terms of revelation or new characters involved. We had the whole assortment of the iconic characters such as Trapjaw and Evelyn as well, and I'm really not convinced by any of them. Trapjaw especially just didn't look very big enough in terms of what you would envisage him as a character. And again, this goes back to the whole artificiality of the overall look and feel of the movie itself. Now, of course, we have to talk about the big standout element, and that was seeing Skeletor and, of course, hearing Skeletor for the first time out of these two first trailers. And I'm really not impressed by the overall vocal tone and sound that they've gone for the character. Hopefully, they'll have time to fix it before we get to the final product. But I understand that to an extent Skeletor has to have this kind of more, if not comedic, then certainly this much more heightened, exaggerated villainry type of personality. But again, you do have to manage that with a more serious tone, otherwise you won't be able to take the character seriously. This is where I think that if we look at the 1987 adaptation, that the actor who played Skeletor back then, Frank Langella, got it absolutely spot on in making sure that Skeletor had that same type of villainry, but also he was a character that had enough serious intent. And very unfortunately, again, I have to remark once more on the lead actor, Nicholas Galitzine, who plays both Prince Adam and He-Man. And if it wasn't apparent enough in the first trailer, I think it's definitely apparent this time that he simply just doesn't have the physical size or the physical conditioning to convince us of a live action He-Man. He simply is too small. Now, whether this is by design or whether the actor didn't build himself up in terms of training, I'm probably tending to go with the former. I think the movie makers were too scared that if they had a He-Man that was too big, that was too muscular and too ripped, that maybe people wouldn't be able to relate to him, or he would seem too powerful, too invincible, and they were probably scared of showing too much of a dominant protagonist. And of course, this is all ridiculous. He-Man, by concept, is defined by his physicality, is defined by his size. He has to be big, he has to be ripped, he has to be muscular. This is the most powerful man in the universe, of course, when we deal with this source material. So you have to have aesthetically a character that looks like he can truly break rocks and lift ships and leap actively into the air and take on all of these powerful forces single-handedly. That's the whole point and purpose of the character. And the actor here just doesn't look the part. This is very much more like a he-boy rather than a he-man. And the more and more I think about it, it's clear that Nicholas should have clearly just played Prince Adam, and they should have got a secondary actor to be He-Man, somebody who looked physically more like the role, and that way you could have split the performance, and then of course that would have tapped into the suspension of disbelief that you would never have the characters thinking that He-Man and Adam were the same people. Now, whether the movie will go with the idea that they know that Prince Adam is He-Man already. We saw that to an extent in the second season of the Kevin Smith Netflix animated series, where everybody knew the identity of Prince Adam as He-Man. So whether the movie will go that way, I'm not so sure. But overall, again, I just think the actor just isn't right for He-Man, and it's just sad that they couldn't have got someone who was far more physically built and much more larger in stature, from an aesthetic point of view, at the very least, to convince us more in the character overall. But that's it really in terms of the thoughts on this second trailer. Like I said, it didn't really show us too much more that we didn't get from the first trailer. Yes, on the one hand, at least it is showcasing a lot of the visual beats from the source material, but I just think overall it's too processed, it's too artificial, it's too CGI, it's too green screen, and it really does take you out of it. And I just wish they had adopted much more of the methods and the movie making that we saw, particularly from the Lord of the Rings. I keep going back to that. That is obviously the standard bearer. And I've said many times on this channel that I think that if you had got He-Man right, you could have potentially had an epic trilogy, cinematically very similar to what we got with Lord of the Rings. But sadly, I don't think that this movie will hold up. But we'll wait and see overall when it releases on June the 2026. And I, of course, will provide a review of the film when it comes out. So those are my thoughts and feelings on the second full trailer for Masters of the Universe. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And if you have any other further movies, television series, or any other topics with the pop entertainment and culture scene that you'd like to see me cover in the channel, then also let me know in the comments, and I will see if I can provide further commentary for you on that subject matter within the future. Please also hit like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you very, very soon.